Okay, Jim, we're on. Welcome, everyone, mostly town employees, but anyway, and members of the FinCom, to our Wenham Board of Selectmen meeting on Tuesday, February 25th, 2000 and, no, that's not the one.
Friday, February 21st. That's the one I opened first. What is this?
Scratch that. Here we
You
go.
want to see my binder?
No, I got it.
Oops, did I say that?
Come on. I thought it was all set here, I guess not. Oh. Well, it should be up there anyway. I
Yeah,
can't-
it's coming up. Do you want an agenda?
Yeah,
Yeah.
can't open it yet. I'll open it in a second, I'm sure. Whatever. All right, try this again. Welcome attendees to our special meeting, actually, of the Board of Selectmen. Today is Friday, February 21st, 2020. It's 1 p.m., and we're meeting to discuss half a dozen or different agenda items, mostly to prepare for the town meeting. So let's see. Can't get it to open. Never. Review and potential vote to place several draft articles on the warrant. Number one is the levy limit budget, usage of free cash to balance the budget, usage of free cash for capital projects, transfer from the water fund surplus for capital project SCADA. You want to tell everyone what SCADA stands for, Eric? You can sit there, just yell it out.
Well, I want to make sure we get it
I'm sure you know what it is by memory, but apparently not.
right. Well, I want to make sure we get everything right here. Supervisory control and data acquisition systems.
Okay.
Nice.
Water irrigation, general bylaw, demolition delay, general bylaw, election of officers. Why is it, anyway. Okay.
So, I think that's my item. So those 2, 4, 6, 7 items are items that we're going to review and vote to place on the warrant. So these are things that are not yet on the warrant.
Here we go.
And in the past, the last one time that we did this, I made the suggestion that we take them separately rather than all together, because people might, some of them are pretty obvious. And some, for instance, demolition delay, I think we're gonna get some further information. So, whatever.
So what do the colors mean?
Oh, so,
Yellow, green, blue, you know?
so the green is what you already voted to insert into the article. The blue ones are ones that are proposed for today, and the green ones will be the remainder for Tuesday night.
The green ones would be them for Tuesday night.
For Tuesday night.
Next Tuesday night, all right.
So
And I did break, Catherine, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's
I
all
did
right.
break them up on the,
oh, great.
so you can go through each one like
Okay.
that, and the
So,
motion is there.
I'll just make the motion, and then we can.
Go ahead.
So this is the levy limit budget. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to insert the levy limit budget article onto the warrant for the April 4th, 2020 annual town meeting, subject to approval as to form by town council. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, but where's the, what exactly are we voting on here? I don't see it up
To
there.
put the levy limit budget article onto the warrant, I guess that top part
Yes.
is the
So it's
actual
the same.
wording,
Oh, well, what's the money being necessary?
subject to council changing some form. Right?
So later on, we're gonna get to okay, the levy limit
This is
budget.
just the levy
Yeah.
limit budget.
Okay,
This is
yeah.
the standard Article
Okay.
1.
I guess,
Was moved
am
and
I
seconded, eh?
right to assume that these are mostly routine and we're just trying to get
Yes,
as
this
much
was
on the
routine for me,
warrant as
yes.
we could? Okay.
Yes, this is a routine.
So further discussion about putting the levy limit budget article on the warrant? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Oh.
all in favor?
Aye. Oh, okay.
Aye.
Yeah, we did second,
Yeah.
now we're voting.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the next one is the usage of free cash to balance the budget, and it's to see what sum of money the town will vote from FY19 free cash to be used to balance the budget for the period July 1, 2020 to July 30th, 2021. So the motion is that the Board of Selectmen vote to insert the usage of free cash to balance the budget article that I just read onto the warrant for the April 4th, 2020 annual town meeting, subject to approval as to form by town council. I don't know why it
Get that
says.
including, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't
That
matter.
was just a cut and paste.
So that's the,
Second, I'll second.
okay. Any discussion on that one? No.
No.
All in favor of putting it on the
Aye.
warrant?
Aye.
Okay. And then we have usage of free cash for capital projects. To see what sum of money the town will vote to transfer from FY 2019 free cash to fund the FY '21 capital improvement program for the following eligible items and amounts, including the acquisition, leasing, purchase, and equipping of capital items, and all incidental and related costs for all capital items and projects, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into a lease purchase agreement or other contracts for such purposes for up to 3 years. Do I need to read the list? Shall I read the list?
Yeah, I think you should.
Okay. So A, Council on Aging, roof replacement, 21,000. Do I have this piece of paper?
Yeah, it's in here.
Yeah, so much easier. Fire protective gear,
Yeah.
30,800. Fire breathing apparatus, SCBA, 15,000. Information technology, replace computers, 10,000. Information technology website, upgrade, 13,500. Iron rail septic system design, 10,000. Police replacement rifles, 5, year 1 of a 2-year program, $7,500.
Catherine, I'm sorry, I just caught that. It should be 7,000.
Well, that's why
Yeah.
I paused, because, so that replacement of the rifles should be $7,000.
Another bargain.
Yeah, okay,
I'll second that.
okay, so actually, that was the actual article, so the motion would be that the Board of Selectmen vote to insert that article onto the warrant, and that's the second. So, if there's no discussion about inserting that onto the warrant, we can vote. No discussion, all in favor of putting that on the warrant?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next one is transfer from water fund.
I have a different one. I have cemetery and article trust funds.
Yeah, mine are in a different order as well.
Well, the computer is, your and my computer got to be the same.
Yeah, they are.
That's just different.
So we'll just use this. I was just concerned about the microphone. So this is the article that would transfer from water fund surplus for a capital project, as we've just been told, supervisory control and data acquisition software. Is that right? Is that software? System. Okay. So the motion is that I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to insert the water fund surplus for capital project article onto the warrant for the April 4th, 2020 annual town meeting, subject to approval as to form by town council.
Yeah, period.
Second.
So we don't have to put an amount in these articles? That's just a
We're going to
question.
be adding that, who's Jackie, adding that after?
Yeah, it's based on the 150,000.
Right.
Right now, we're just putting it on the warrant, apparently.
So, but I mean,
Yeah, that's a good question.
yeah, at town meeting, does there need to be a number
Oh, yeah.
in there? Okay, so I'm going to amend that motion that we insert it onto the warrant, subject to the approval as to form and on a dollar amount.
Well, that applied to the other one previously as well.
Yeah, so that's true. So,
We haven't done any money yet, so that,
well, it's true, I guess that's true of all of them, all of those
Right.
money ones.
Yeah, they're still,
Okay.
so we're just putting
So we're
these on
just
the
putting it on
warrant.
the warrant.
That's all.
Well, the second one with the capital did have dollar
I
amounts.
did, you're right.
But, anyway, so that's the motion.
I already seconded it.
Any discussion on that?
All set.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What do we have next? Water irrigation.
Yeah, I hope we get back to the original ones here. I mean, cemetery maintenance transfer, is that thing gonna come up somewhere? Because that's,
Jack, that's already on the warrant.
it's already on the warrant.
but it's on my screen to approve and discuss, so.
Well, it's, yeah, recommendation,
it should be.
recommendation. So I just have to get to the one that, yeah.
Because that and our computer and that up there are
Well,
not in sync.
I think the computer has all the articles that have already, some that have already been put on, and some that need to be put on are in our computer. So This is a bylaw, water irrigation general bylaw. I'm just going to do this. To see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaw by adding the language, all irrigation systems are prohibited from utilizing or connecting to the town's water infrastructure, or to take any action relative thereto. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to insert the water irrigation general bylaw article onto the warrant for the April 4th, 2020 annual town meeting, subject to approval as to form by town council.
Second.
So, can you just expand on that a little? So we have a couple of bylaw amendments that were, aside from the general code.
Eric, you want to speak to this?
I can, yeah, I'll-
Yeah, I just think it's a good opportunity for people. Thanks.
So right now, every time the planning board or zoning board sends out recommendations from the water department, we write back and say, any new development, if you're gonna put in irrigation, we're gonna ask you, don't hook up to the town water system, and that you would have to install an irrigation well yourself, or do drought, plants and different landscaping. So instead of us always commenting in that our comments, and we had one case that kind of got lost while it was being, the conditions of the permit were being issued. So with Margaret, we felt that it was just, if we had a general bylaw that just stated that just outright, it wouldn't have to be discussed.
And this is, if I'm reading this right, it's not just developments, it's any
Any
new
new construction.
Any new construction
Yes.
can have an irrigation system, but not connected to the town water.
Yes.
Okay, I get it.
Well, it doesn't have to be new construction. It could be somebody who just had been in town for 20 years and just decided to put an irrigation system in, right?
I didn't write it, so,
Yeah, that's what I had assumed,
okay.
based on what you and Margaret had told me.
Okay, yeah.
So it could be,
All
so it could be
new.
new
No, there
or
would be
existing.
No new connections of irrigation.
Yeah, that's not what it says, and we should amend it.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can.
so all new irrigation systems,
Yeah,
or actually, they're,
that's it. Keep,
it's all, yeah, well, in one hand, it's all new irrigation systems are prohibited from utilizing or connecting to town's water, but it's also, someone may have an irrigation system on a well right now that they think, oh, my well's going dry, I want to add.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's really no irrigation systems, or all irrigation systems, new, old, development, individual, I don't know how you write that, are prohibited from utilizing.
Irrigations-
No new connections, that's the
Yeah.
key word.
Irrigation systems may no longer be connected to town water infrastructure from this date forward.
Well, I don't think we're telling everybody in town that they have to disconnect from the town.
Right, no,
No,
we're not.
We're just saying that
From
when,
now
yeah,
on,
No
any-
new connections.
no additional connections.
right.
Is that no new connections without approval? If someone wanted to put it in, how would they get approval to do it? If that bylaw is that strict and,
They would put it in a well, irrigation well. A lot of people have them in town.
There's no authority that can override this bylaw, is that what you're asking? Like, they can't go and ask for a special something or other from anybody to,
I don't believe so. I mean, there's,
depends how we write it.
just, it looks like it's written just a prohibition.
All new or existing irrigation system not now connected are prohibited from utilizing the town's water infrastructure. There's some who are already connected, right?
yeah, we do have a lot of
And
people that are
we're not
connected.
going to touch those, though, right?
No, exactly. I mean, that would
Change the words up there a little bit.
that would be completely.
Yeah,
We couldn't do that. I mean, we.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Well,
might be unelected and you might be fired.
I think so.
as so many of these things, though, the interpretation is not always completely clear, so we try to write it so that it is completely clear. If I have an irrigation system that's currently on a well, and the well dies, dries up, whatever,
We'll have a ceremony.
we'll bury it, and,
Now to not connect.
and now, but they'd have to dig another well, they can no longer connect.
Yes.
Okay, so whatever, you get it, whatever the wording has to be. We don't want to penalize people just in general if everything is connected and
No.
working.
Update a draft for you on Tuesday when you go to make your.
Yeah, please, because we need to get that one right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So shall we
Pass on
pass
this until.
over on
yeah,
that one
I
until
think so.
Tuesday? So we'll defer that one until Tuesday. Okay, so what do we have next? I mean, it sounds
Eric,
like,
and the reason for this is what? I'm not sure I have understood.
So we can allow future growth in town. The problem is
So we can allow for future growth.
Yeah, so if we limit people from using our water, our
Yes.
drinking water to water their lawns, it allows us to be able to, be able to build in town and have people put in new homes and still keep underneath our permitted withdrawal amounts from Mass
So
DEP.
restricting the sprinkler systems as opposed
Yeah.
to drinking water, domestic.
New systems, Jeff.
Yep.
I got you, okay. Now I got it,
But
okay.
one thing that came up in another discussion was even if a homeowner has a well, they are still subject to the water ban
Yes,
as
yes
far
they
as
are.
using the well,
It's
correct?
already in our bylaw.
Okay, someone said, well, does that mean? And I
Yep.
just wanted to be sure I was clear. Okay,
All right, thank you, Eric.
okay, to be revisited. What do we have next? Demolition delay by general bylaw, to see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaw by adding the new article entitled Chapter 25.3, demolition delay bylaw as written in appendix, and I think you're gonna hear a little bit more about it. But I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen vote to insert the demolition delay general bylaw article onto the warrant for April 4, 2020 annual town meeting, subject to approval as to form. Harry, you look like you've got some papers in front of you. Are you gonna?
Say a few things.
I wouldn't mind hearing a little bit about, excited to hear a little bit about it, actually. Well, I am, because I've sort of been hoping for.
Historic District Commission and Historical Commission have revised and have come forward with a new demolition delay with a couple of salient points. First of all, the delay term is 6 months. Secondly, it will affect houses built before 1875. I might point out that Hamilton has a delay law, and their date is 1940. I would also just point out that the delay is not going to be recorded with the Registry of Deeds, or have any effect on property, and it shouldn't affect the assessed value. And 150 cities and towns have this demolition delay law, and we think it's time for Wenham to have one.
Well, you thought that a few years ago, and it didn't pass, but let's hope this, that was pretty controversial. We had a lot of people getting up in the microphone, mostly against it, and so you're anticipating that we wouldn't have the same crowd of people in the microphone for an hour and a half talking against it, right? Did you have a
had-
public hearing in this?
We had 2 sessions of public hearing, and not a single person showed up.
But they will at town meeting. Okay, thanks.
So, a couple of things. I see that it is simpler and shorter,
How?
which I think will be, the time period is shorter, the whole process seems simpler. I feel like that will help. I just have one question. So, structures built built in 1875 or earlier, love that, no lists of dates. But based on what? That's the only thing that it's not completely clear.
Prior, we had a list of properties.
Right.
And there is no list of properties.
Great, I love that.
It's when somebody goes to the building
Right.
department to get a demolition permit, and if it's built before that 1875 date, then immediately one looks at it. Now, just for example, there was a house that was recently torn down. I believe it was 128 Topsfield Road. It's now demolished, and the ZBA last night approved new construction to go there. We did not have a demolition delay law. I got calls from the abutters saying, what happened? I said, well, we didn't have one. But my point is, that house would have been subject to it, and a determination would have been made, I'm guessing, early on in the process that it was not worthy of saving. So it might have...
Historically significant, is that?
That's correct. It really was, because it was in such horrible condition anyway.
Right. So what source? So the person who has to decide, the building inspector, or who might come to the Historic District Commission, has to decide if it is, when it was built.
Yeah.
I guess that's my question. So what source are people going to go to prove?
It's the best efforts. Many houses that I know personally are listed on our database as built in 1900, when I know they were built years before. It's a best guess. You can pretty much tell.
You can, I can't.
Cite the assessor's estimated year bill
Right.
as a consistent number for all houses in the community.
That's a good idea, I think, because it just gives everyone the same,
Right,
go to
the
the assessors
benchmark.
and they have a benchmark.
Right.
And there's nobody arguing about, no, it's 1873, no, it's 1876. It's just, this is going to be what you use. Okay.
So how many houses do you think would qualify under this as
I don't
being...
know, it's hard to say.
Is there
I
a
mean, we
guess
had
by the historic, is it 20 or is it 200?
Oh, no. This isn't just in the historic districts
I know,
throughout the
I'm
town.
sorry, the whole town.
It might be 75, might be, when I think about what we've had before. Somewhere's in that level.
Someone
And
should
6 months is not,
I know, right, I got it. Someone should take an educated guess. You might be asked that at a town meeting, and we should have we used to call wild
well,
guess
all we
guess.
need to do is actually look at the list. Look at the list that we put forth before. I'm just saying, it will be real easy, because we had a list of
We
them.
do have a list, that's
For-
right. I remember when we did this a year ago,
had a
whatever it
list
was,
before.
yeah.
If we're going to use data from the assessors to evaluate this afterwards, is that a possibility that we'd have a list, we could get a list from the assessor?
Yeah, we could pull that one.
And it's not, it's just to get
Okay,
a number.
good.
Again, I think just a tip, I guess, or a suggestion is the less we can talk about lists
Yes,
at
that's
town
right.
meeting, the better off.
Yep.
But we could talk about a number, and that
An
number could be...
estimated number of, I
Right.
think we need to have an estimate.
Yeah.
How many houses it would,
Approximately our best guess based
Mm-hmm.
on records in town, whatever you want to say.
but in addition to the house, it could also be the barn,
Yeah, all the barn, structures, you might
the
say.
structure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Does that say structures up there?
Well, it's in
It
here.
says structures on our fact sheet.
Structures, that's what it says on the,
Structures eligible for the delay.
All right.
Yep.
okay? I
Okay,
get it.
all right.
Go ahead. Come to the microphone, though, so
Yeah.
everyone can hear you.
Is the 6 months the outside? What if a property owner comes and says, well, can I hasten this, or can it be less than 6 months? Is there a process in the bylaw for that?
I can answer to the process piece, because our department will be. So I will say this round, we worked really closely, the permitting office with the Historic District Commission, as well as the assessors on this. The process will be that when someone submits their application, the 6 months is the total amount of time that they would be delayed from the normal demolition process. And so not all houses that are older than 1875 would have the delay implemented. It's just that houses that are 1875 or older could potentially be deemed historically significant and have the delay implemented. So there are many houses that are older than 1875 that have had significant renovation, or like 128 Topsfield Road, are so deteriorated that the Historic District Commission says, no, we're not even going to have a hearing on whether this is significant, we pass. And so a lot of houses would be through this process in the normal demolition time period of about 2 weeks from the building department when a demolition permit is issued. So there are many houses that would not potentially see the Historic Commission, they would pass on those if they were deemed not historically significant, and would fall under the normal time process, which is 2 weeks to about a month at the very max.
So if you're thinking of selling your house, and you were wondering whether or not it qualified as prior to 1875 and is historically significant or a structure, it'd be wise to come to the Historic District Commission and ask, is this going to be a relevant,
Yeah.
and instead of just guessing when following the paperwork, and someone should come well in advance to determine whether or not it's going to affect them or not.
Correct. They could seek a written opinion from the Historical Commission saying, do you consider us historically significant? Which is one of their Mass General Law duties, is to deem things historically significant.
I think that'd be advisable for the people who are thinking of selling the house, who might, instead of just, oopsie daisy, guess what?
Exactly.
Sorry.
But once the house is sold, the person who buys it, if they decide to demolish it, still has to put in this application.
Yes, they still have to go
So
through
they-
the process,
yeah.
even if that opinion has said,
Yeah, okay.
because then the Historic Commission still has the ability to implement the delay. Their opinion that is significant is one piece, but they have to have a 2/3 majority vote to implement the delay.
Okay. That seems fair.
Okay.
Okay, we ready to vote?
Yeah.
So this is to put this bylaw on the warrant. All in favor?
Did you move?
Yes, believe I made the motion.
Okay, second. I didn't, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. What do we have next? Oh, no.
So I have a question, Catherine.
Yeah.
You're going by the screen here, but we have a lot of warrant articles that aren't on that screen that, in front of us that was, so are we going to get back to these, or are they automatic? I mean, how do we vote to put these on the warrant?
So-
Maybe I should ask.
It goes back to this right here, this slide right here, Jack. So what you have, obviously there was a typo in that sheet. So the ones that, it'll pop up in a second.
2, 3, okay.
Okay, so the ones in yellow, you already did. So.
When did we do those?
We did those couple meetings back. So we inserted those into the article, or
Okay.
into the warrant already.
I'll go back to the colors. And the rest of them, or we're,
So you're doing the blue ones now,
yeah,
and you're on the last one, which is the election of officers, which we actually already did, but we're correcting, correct, Jackie?
Correct, because of the, we have an unfulfilled seat on the housing authority that is a little different than usual
Right,
so then we're gonna do the green, when are we gonna do the green?
on Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Okay,
But
More to come.
everything is in the packet, whether it's been,
Yeah, everything is in the packet regardless, right?
that's why we've got
that's
some.
why I'm trying to figure
Right.
it out.
So what is on
It's
the
on-
agenda for things that we to place on the draft article, I believe match the things that we've just gone through,
Correct.
except for the election of
We have to
officers.
go back and look at it, the first slide, to figure out what, whether
Yeah.
it is or it isn't. Okay. I guess this is progress. I don't know.
So we have one last one for today, I guess.
I don't have the description because that was Jackie, do we have something on that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, this is exactly what
Yeah.
we put on the,
We've had it before, the only change, we had it before.
What did we have the first time?
The only, we had the normal list of officers, all of the elected positions and the year lengths. The amendment is to include the corrected year length for the housing authority for the seat that was made vacant, and you just appointed someone to fulfill it till the
Right.
election. So it's just a different, it's 4 years instead of 5 because it's fulfilling an unfulfilled term for the housing authority.
Right, so the first time you voted on this, you voted on it for a 5-year, but it's actually only a 4-year, because it's filling the remainder of the term of
Yep.
Arthur Burt's term.
so we have the corrected, am I right? The corrected version
In your packet.
in our
In your
packets.
packet, I
It
just don't
says
have it
needs to be amended, but I guess it's already been amended, and the last
And I
sentence says.
highlighted the changes.
Wenham, well, so these things are highlighted. Hamilton Wenham Regional School Committee, 3 positions is highlighted.
That's correct.
That was different the
That was
last time we
different. It was
voted?
2 before, because it's an off year for them.
Okay. Town clerk, 1 position, 3-year term. What was that before? It's highlighted.
That one, just
Was
the
it this-
wrong number was in the spot, and none of us caught it.
Okay.
We were all reading it that night
It
together.
is a 3-year term.
Right.
It is.
And then, to this point, it now says,
It said 5-year term.
Yeah, it was
It was-
the
it's-
wrong number.
okay. So the new language is Wenham Housing Authority, 1 position, comma, 4-year term to fulfill an unexpired
And
term.
that's the
Correct.
substantive one, that other was just a typo. This is the substantive one due to the seat that was vacated in the fall.
So this motion, I think, should say that to move that the Board of Selectmen vote to insert the amended
Amended,
yeah.
election of
Yep.
officers article onto the warrant for April 4th, 2020. Does that make sense? If so, a second.
Second.
If not,
Sure.
whatever. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So those are all of the warrant articles that we have on our agenda to have put onto the warrant today.
Okey dokey. Let's see. We're now down to, I guess there's no reports of town administrator, the chairman, or anybody else, so, review, we did all that, okay, good. Now, we're moving right along here. Budget discussion. Okay, new business operating budget. Discussion and decision override article structure, requested by the town administrator, okay,
Yeah, want me to go?
yeah.
Okay. So we realize right now that the override amount necessary to fulfill, fully fund town and schools is at $1,085,363. So when we were looking, these 2 apportionment schedules up here was reviewing how is that fairly and equitably broken down between the towns and the schools. So the first chart up here shows the percentage of the town, of the whole budget, which was 45%, and the schools was 54%. So if we looked at that in relation to the override amount, it comes to 496,012 and 589,350. We didn't feel that that was a true representation because the town is not, the town itself does need an override, but that amount is not a true indication of what the town's share is. So we went to the second apportionment schedule, which is basically looking at the prior years and the change, and then we got the percentage of the amount of the 5.4 times the total override amount, which came to 361, which was 33.32%. And we did the same for the schools at the 66% of that override, and it came to $723,722.
That's slightly different when you, than what you gave me yesterday.
We saw a little $40 change, Jack. It was a minor change.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this number that you have
Which,
is
730,
a
what's the same?
different one. So can
730.
someone send us the updated
yeah,
one?
yes.
What you,
Yeah.
with 732, what does it say now? 730?
732, 722?
23,722.
Oh, God, I can't see that.
7,
Oh, I have that.
723,
And
722.
361, 640. Oh,
Comma
so we do have that
722.
in our,
In your
I
packet.
don't have,
33
you know, I'm
and
looking at the
16.
screen. So what is it, is the total still 1,085,504?
363, a little less.
105, 1,085,363?
Yes.
and
You know
so,
what, Jack? I actually printed a new sheet. Why don't you take this one?
That'd be easier.
Yeah.
so if I understand that, this second
You get the right sheet.
chart actually calculates the percentage of the change that belongs to the schools and the percentage of the change that belongs to the town.
Correct.
And applies those percentages to the total override.
Correct.
So they have 67% of the change, and they get 67%, you know, based on that, would get 67% of the
I guess they're
override.
getting 66 point, yeah, 67.
66.68,
And 33.32.
right, based on that second.
Okay, slightly different than we saw.
So there were a couple of options based on some conversations from the other night's meeting that we put together for you. This first option is 2 separate single-question override articles, and neither one of these articles, obviously the first article dealing with the school does not, town does not include leaf pickup. So the first article is just the town's portion. So there would be 2 articles in this option, one for the town at 361,640, and one for the schools at 723,722.
Okay.
The second option would be 1 article with multi-departmental purposes with an allocation. So it says the full additional override is 1.085363, of which Wenham's municipal government operations expenses are 361,640, in Wenham's share of Hamilton Wenham School District at 723,722. With this article, because it fully would fund, I guess we could have a contingency article on the other thing, but there's a contingency article, so if those folks would like to assess an additional $50,000 for a leaf pickup, then this article would do that. So it gives them the option on the leaves, which we had talked about the other night.
Okay, so, questions, we can,
Okay, so,
go ahead.
go ahead, may I just, this is just a question.
I have one after you.
Oh, okay. You want to go first?
Oh, good.
Okay. So I think what you said relative to the leaf article is that if the town, if we go actually with either one, but if the town budget, the town override does not pass in any one of these options, then we would pass over. Am I saying that right?
You are, but I'm not
Yes,
sure
you
I
are.
agree with it, but go ahead.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand what it is
Yeah,
before I decide whether I agree with it.
yes.
So if the town says,
I agree.
cut funds, then we would not put forward the loose leaf pickup article.
Under this act, that's correct.
For this, that's what this
So the
option.
first option, if that fails, then, first of all, we worked off a level services budget from last year, which did not fund loose leaf collection. What we did is Bill was able to still do loose leaf collection, but we didn't do the MS4 testing. So it was never in last year, and we asked our departments, we were told to create level services budget, so our level services budget never included loose leaf for this year. So this article, I suppose what we could do, if you wanted on this one, if it did pass, you could have that contingent article and add loose leaf
I
onto
think it should be on
that.
there regardless of whether any of the pass or fail.
Yeah, so we could do that on that.
Yeah, because a lot of people are more interested in loosely pickup than anything else. So that,
Can I ask for just clarification on that, Jake?
I think we should have an override article regardless of whatever form we ultimately adopt today, for whether it's 2 articles or 1 combined article. I think we should have a separate article for loose leaf pickup, regardless of whether it passes or fails.
Okay,
The first,
so I guess the concern on this first one, if this fails 361, 640,
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about significant reduction of services, possibly
I got it.
even in staff.
I got
So
it.
at that point, I don't think Bill would be able to do loose leaf if we were talking a reduction of staff.
Even for 50,000. Even if you had an additional $50,000. Because
Well, the additional 50,000 is based on full staff. So now if we don't have full staff anymore, now we're asking Bill to do the same thing with less people, which I would imagine that would be difficult to do if Bill was down 2, 3 people. Bill's here.
I think we have to have an article for loose leaf pickup, and that whether or not we have to go hire outside people to do it, and Bill doesn't have the staff, whatever. The town has to have the option to say, I want loose leaf pickup, 50,000, I got it. If it's a different number, put that in. Whether the first of the 2 options or the override options pass or fail, I think that we're not doing the town a service without putting this in.
So we could do that. We can get a quote from Bill, can go out and get a landscape and find out how much it would cost, but
I
that
did
50.
once, I couldn't get one person to respond because they'd have to all buy new equipment. And unless it was a long-term contract, nobody was interested.
And there's still going to be, or at least the last conversation we had, bag pickup.
If there wasn't loose leaf, there would have to be bag pickup.
Right.
You know, we're gonna know right after town meeting, the afternoon thereof, or the evening thereof, whether the override articles in the beginning pass or fail. So we have several months between the fall loose leaf pickup and the passing or failure of the 1 or 2 override articles. We have 6 months to figure out how we're gonna, if 50,000 is approved by the voters in override, we have 6 months to figure out how we're gonna do it. And I'm confident in your management ability, Bill, to figure out how we can do it for 50,000. If you have to pay 60 or 70 or 80 to somebody else, people want loose leaf pickup. I think it's going to pass overwhelmingly, and money is not the issue.
It's never been about the money, it's been about the loss of the manpower and the loss of 2 months' production where other things that need to be done aren't being done because we're picking up leaves on private property. We're still giving, if we did, we'd still be giving a bag leaf pickup, and now we're offering a place to drop them off starting this year in July, and that's 2 other options we never looked at before.
I
If
see.
I had the $50,000, it wouldn't be going towards leaf pickup, it would be going towards
I
things
understand.
normally we would be doing.
I understand that. I got it, and that I got what he said. But I think we need to be able to provide a loose leaf pickup option, whatever that is, to the townsfolk, because that's all I hear about. And, you know, that we're going to have that, and people are dreading the fact they have to, I don't know. I heard the new options from Anthony a couple of days ago, but I don't know. I'll open it up to my 2 colleagues, and maybe they don't feel the same way I do.
Have any thoughts, John?
The only thing I would offer is simply the bag pickup, and forget the loose leaf pickup under any circumstance. But if the town folks, the boss, do decide that they want loose leaf pickup, as Bill put it, on private property, then we're going to have to we would have to factor in a dollar figure to accomplish that. And whether you go to outside, which Bill's indicating that he couldn't find anybody to do.
Well, that was 8 years ago, I can look again.
Yeah, or we have to hire extra help to do that.
Well, make it 75,000, whatever, you know, whatever is comfortable here. And that, you know, if we think 50,000 is not going to be attractive enough for the people, some other number that's reasonable and not a scary number that we just make up to scare people, and that,
Good point. No, that's a good point, Jack.
Yeah,
but we need to give, I feel strongly, as you can tell, that I've heard enough from people that this loose leaf pickup continuation thereof is extremely important to people.
I agree with you, Jack. I think it is extremely important. I think I understand what what Anthony is saying is in the event that an override for $361,000 fails, we're going to have some significant staffing cuts.
Yep.
And so if we think loose leaf pickup is important, more important to other people than what's in the override, police, fire, things like that, if people, regardless of the override, want that, then we should absolutely put enough money to do it, because it's not like we're going to have, if we lose the override, it's not like we're going to have extra funds or whatever.
Yeah.
So I put in I think it should be contingent, but if you guys don't, then at least put in the right, not the right number, but a number
in a more
that
accurate
actually will accomplish that without adversely affecting what,
The performance of that
DPW department, which might already be diminished if the override fails.
I'm reflecting a conversation we had with 2 or 3 years, casually with neighbors and other people, loose leaf pickup. They don't talk about, gee, if we laid off 1 or 2 policemen, would you be, well, they have no clue. Loose leaf pickup, they have a strong clue whether they want to continue that or not. And that doesn't go to the highway department, they want the roads plowed and so forth. But fire department, I don't know. I mean, this is a hot button issue that affects every single homeowner in town. And I think we need to give them the option. It's going to cost more money. Use 75,000, that's a safe number, maybe, I don't know. And maybe you can make a couple of inquiries between now and town meeting. We have a month, and that if you think you can get it for 75, you come back and say, no one's even biting for that, we're going to have to pass over it or do something different in town meeting. But I'd like to at least get it in the warrant, because we can modify this in the next 5 weeks-ish.
Just as a clarification, as an leaf pickup as an override will be a ballot question, which cannot be modified after the 35 days before the town election. So we would need a number next week for the ballot.
Give us a number, Bill, next week.
We don't have a
I can see the enthusiasm in your face. So,
Trying to think of a landscaper big enough to be interested. I don't even know of anybody who has a leaf back as big as ours. I've never seen one.
well, they can rent one. I don't know. I don't want to hold this meeting up any further, but go ahead.
Well,
I'll look into it.
so are we saying that we're going to wait to decide finally on the contingency article till we maybe get a little bit more information?
We
or-
can.
I'm just trying to
Yeah,
understand.
we should have as accurate a number as possible, so that both Bill is comfortable that it can be done for whatever that figure is, and the voters have a similar comfort.
Yeah, I can see Bill's tax dilemma. He couldn't get anybody. What's the right number? We're asking him to do a wild ass guess here, so that I understand the difficulty of doing a wild ass guess. But now you have a few days, maybe you can make that not so wild.
I can probably have an estimate Monday or Tuesday.
There you go.
Well, I guess, so when the 35 days is exactly what date, do you know? The ballot is
I would say
deadline?
March 1st.
Well, we're meeting Tuesday night.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So that's our last meeting before March 1st.
Okay, we'll do.
Right?
Because we just need to, it's not just about what this board chooses, but to vote it, to get it approved by council, and to file it with the clerk has to be 35 days before the town meeting opens.
So let's defer that to
So-
next Tuesday night. No.
Right. So if we were to make a decision on this on Tuesday night, that gives everybody an
Tuesday night is good, that's why it
Okay.
was our deadline, but we don't have like Jack had used, we don't have a month. We have to, the
Right.
ballot question has to be.
I had a couple of emails saying it was early March. And what is the drop dead date on that, by the way?
For the 35 days?
Yeah.
It's 35 days before town meeting.
What's the date?
March 2nd or 3rd, off the top of my head.
Okay.
But we never let you guys get that close.
I know.
To the draft date.
Well, I had an email saying, why are you doing it, now, Tuesday? It's early March. Well, early March is, okay. I
mean,
didn't know what
It's
the
right
exact
here,
date
yeah,
was.
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
We,
the timing and the weather, we never want to miss it because of the snow.
It's New England in the winter, that's
Yeah.
right. And there's supposed to be a rainstorm coming late Monday, too. I know.
Yeah.
It's not snow, though.
hopefully not.
So are we comfortable with the?
So we're going to wait to hear the final result of that one on Tuesday.
Take it up Tuesday night.
Yeah. Are we done talking about the other part for now, or where are we with that?
Have we covered all of the ones we hadn't previously covered? I mean, the red and the yellow and the blue and the green and all that. I
Right.
got kind of lost with all the colors in the beginning, and then,
We have everything, I think, if I'm reading this right, Anthony, that everything that you desired for us to address by today has been addressed. in
Has been
terms of
addressed,
putting
and
it
we
on
kicked
our-
one item off until Tuesday.
Right,
for,
So-
yeah, for the inclusion on the warrant.
right,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
And we
okay.
still have to, I guess, go through all and make recommendations and
Yeah.
have final numbers and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Okay,
Okay. What's next? The operating override, is that right?
It was just this.
Yeah, we're under B, right? New business B, override article structure. Okay,
That was what we just did.
no, we haven't done that yet.
Well, I think,
Whether
We
we're gonna have
haven't
one
voted
override
this.
or two overrides,
Right.
we haven't even discussed it yet.
but
Well, no, I'm just saying, that I explained it.
yeah, I think we have two decisions, am I right? The first one is the apportionment, and I think we talked about the 33%
Yeah.
and 67.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to vote to recommend that that be the allocation
That's
of
a
the
good idea.
override?
I'll go along with that.
You want me
I think it's a good idea. I thought it,
Would you like me to make a motion?
No.
Would
There
you
you
like to make a
go.
motion? I feel like the most,
step right up.
bring it up.
if we are moving,
Make
if we
the
can, if
motion.
there's something,
the
okay.
motion.
So, regardless of the structure, so this is just the apportionment, I think the motion is to allocate, based on percent change, a percent change and increase, to allocate 33.32% of the total override amount to Wenham
Why don't
as
you- why
being
don't
the
you
town.
specify the dollar amount too?
Okay, well, I could, but I don't know if that's gonna end up being the dollar amount, but anyway,
Well,
so this
we
is a
might change
motion,
Tuesday night, but,
Well, there is a dollar amount in this listing.
right, okay, so you have the newest page, okay.
Yeah, 360.
So it's a motion to apportion the override, which has a total regardless of $1,085,363. To apportion that into two parts, a town portion at 33.32% for $361,640, and a school-only portion, which would be 66.68% of the total override, or $723,722.
I'll second that.
So that we at least agree on how we'd split it.
All right, so this is
We haven't got to how we're going to split it. I mean,
This is a recommendation, a motion to recommend that we have an override and apportion it by the numbers and percentages you just described.
Right.
Okay,
It just doesn't speak to what the override articles would look like.
Right.
okay.
Is there a
I'll be
second?
glad to speak to it.
I think.
I think that was a motion. I tried to make that into a
And I
motion.
seconded it.
Okay,
Okay.
so,
We're not talking about the structure of the override, we're just talking about how much of the money of the override goes to the schools versus the town.
Correct.
And this is what somebody came up with. I think it sounds all reasonable to me.
Okay.
We haven't discussed, as I said, how we're going to do it, one article or two or whatever. So the question is,
right. Because the override's not going to change, well, in general, the schools have voted their
The total
budget.
amount's not gonna
The
change.
total amount is not likely to change, so, we have to start off by deciding concretely
Okay.
how much of it belongs to the town, how
Yeah.
much, right?
All right, I'm going to make a simple statement, and that is that I am strongly against any kind of an operational override.
John, we get to that in a minute. We're just talking about the allocation right now.
The allocation. and
Allocation of the
that's-
dollars.
Okay,
Well,
that's fine then.
but let me ask you, John, if you're against, it's pertinent, because if John is saying there should be zero number for an override, at least for the town, because we can't say that for the
Okay.
schools,
All right.
We
then we
can't
don't
speak for
need
the
to
schools,
do
that's
that.
right.
We don't need to make an apportionment.
Right.
So
Well,
I don't agree with John, but that doesn't,
no,
he's
no,
made a
let's say,
statement of,
Are you saying for the schools as well, John?
Yes.
So the million, you're not in favor of any aspect of $1,085,000 override?
That is correct.
Okay, well,
I don't think legally we have that option,
no, we don't.
We may not.
because I don't think we can fit the entire school portion of the budget under our levy limit,
No, we can't.
even if we had no
We
increase
have
for
to
the
present
town.
the school's budget and vote on it at the town meeting,
Right.
whether we like it or not.
And so if we can't fit it all underneath our levy limit, then we've
have to
got
have-
to have an
yeah,
override,
yeah.
at least for the schools.
Yeah.
Okay?
Now, to your point, you can go back in a minute and say, you're not in favor of having, we'll get to that in a second, you're not in favor of having $361,640 as an override for the town. If you're against that, the vote is coming up in a second.
Okay, and I'll hold my,
Okay, I'm trying to get,
yeah.
trying to
keep
get
my
through
powder
this
dry.
for now.
Okay, so the motion at the moment is assuming an override of $1,085,363. $361,640 would be an override for education, and $723,722 would be an override for, I did that backwards, for the town,
Yeah,
sorry.
all right.
$361 for the town, $723,722 for the schools.
Right.
Right. So, and you seconded
Yeah.
that? So, all in favor, before we go any further, of that apportionment, should we decide to do it this way?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay. Now, where the rubber meets the road here, and that there's two aspects of this you just heard from John, and that, so I'd like to talk about, if I may, and that, I've been giving a lot of thought, for some of the people in the room already know what we're talking about here, is the question is, should we have one overall override that combines the town and the schools, which would be $85,363.
But would identify the town amount and the school amount separately?
It would identify the town amount separately.
Okay.
Or conversely, or alternatively, I should say, should we have two overrides? One for the town and one for the schools, in the amounts you've already heard a few minutes ago. So I thought about this, I thought it was an innovative way of doing it. So I have a question for you, Anthony. What if if we chose the combined override? Put it all in one with a parenthetical expression of what's attributable to the towns and the schools. What if that failed? The schools have another bite of the apple, or two or three. And are we dead?
I'd have to double check with council. I would say no, because it's,
Well,
I would say under the first option, yes, that's it. We don't get another bite at the apple.
so if we combine the two, and it didn't
failed.
pass,
And we can go back to the, not the.
I don't think, I want to be really, really sure about this. I think we're dead, meaning that we're done. The schools have more choices than we do, but,
Well, I think that's true of either option,
the schools always, if we,
for the town.
Yes.
If either one of,
Yes,
it's
yes.
either option, and the
Yes.
town portion or the whole thing doesn't pass.
Yes.
The town, I guess we could have another town meeting, but,
That's right,
what-
that's
you
right.
know,
But-
but
That
there's
would
no
be the rebound.
statutory way to do that.
for this town meeting coming up.
Yes.
If either of the two options is chosen, and one combined option with, again, the parenthetical expressions of what each is attributed, that fails, or we have two separate ones and the town one fails, we're done
I think that's right for this town meeting.
for this town meeting,
Right.
correct?
What if we did option 2 first as a warrant article?
I have a suggestion in a minute, but I just want to.
Oh, okay. But no, I was just gonna give you a
I want people to
thought.
understand
Yeah.
that, this is a high-stakes game here, that, not game, high-stakes
Situation.
situation. Not a game at all. A game, I go take my ball and bat and go
Yeah,
home.
really, it's an awful game if it's a game.
So, now, I think I expressed an opinion the other night that I really think that the townsfolk should be given a choice. And that, although I think that some people would speculate, and I wouldn't disagree, that maybe we have a better shot, the town has a better shot by combining with the schools. And I think the schools have a better shot by combining with the towns. So the override, overall, both overrides or the combined override probably has a better chance of passing, I think. You can speculate on that. But on the other hand, I think the townsfolk should have a choice. And those who favor the schools and think the town should be cutting, as John just said a minute ago, then fine. If we separate the two articles and the town one fails, we have $360,000 worth of cuts to make, ish, 361, whatever. If the school's passed, they don't have to, they go off in their merry way and spend the money, and they're all set. Conversely, and people speculate that'll never happen, but it could be the other way around too. Or they both could pass, they both could fail. And so there's like 3 different scenarios. I think that as a town voter, not as a selectman, I would prefer a choice. And I want to say, no, I think the town's doing a great job. The schools, that's a lot of money. They are always asking for a lot of money. Or, no, the schools are doing a wonderful job. They deferred a lot of stuff. If you read the Chronicle, the transcript Chronicle, whatever they call it now, the article that came out yesterday in the paper, anybody here read that? No, I guess not.
I missed it already.
It was an interesting article, mostly what they were deferring in expenditures to next year, and they didn't put it in this year's budget. I think David Polito was in coordinating.
The school district, yeah.
Did you read the article?
No, I
Okay.
actually didn't get the paper, but
You don't get that anymore?
I didn't get it yesterday. But I've heard the discussions at the school committee meeting, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so I'm in favor of, whether we vote yes or no, I'm in favor of separating them, as we talked about before, and having a separate school override number, which we already have, and a separate town override number, and have 2 separate override choices to make. And I have no clue whether that it's going to help the schools, or hurt the schools, help the town, hurt the town, whatever. It's hard to speculate, and but that's my opinion on that. And then, John, you can come in and say, I'm not in favor of the override. We can vote on the override structure, then we can vote whether you like the override amounts or not, I guess. And that I'm just trying to.
Well, I hear you, but I think what I would like to hear a little bit more what John is suggesting, because I don't think we're in a position.
I'm more than glad to explain.
So, yeah,
Explain.
so please, before I opine myself.
I am vehemently opposed to any override. If you don't have enough money to buy the car,
Yeah, okay.
you shouldn't be buying the car. That's how it works in the normal world, the business world, and my home. I could be possibly convinced that if we were to have an operational override for the town for this 1 year, that there's going to be an exit strategy as to how we are going to get out of the problem, because nobody has answered the question, and I asked it twice yesterday, as to what's next year's budget going to look like, and the year after. If we can't answer that question, then this is just a fool's game, where we will then start to become addicted, as the school system did years ago, putting operational overrides on their budget. And guess what? That's why we have such a high rate coming from our schools, and I do not want to be part of that addiction. And I don't mean to make that a major thrust in here. It's fiscal irresponsibility.
So let me help a little bit here. So we're also going to need to bifurcate this question right here. So part A is that we're going to have a 1 overall vote with the parentheses, the amounts in there, or we're going to have 2 override questions. That's a vote.
Mm-hmm.
Then another vote is, we don't have to make it tonight, are we in favor of the school override vote, or are we in favor of the town override vote, or not? But, whether we separate them or combine them, we can choose tonight without,
Okay.
that doesn't affect John's opinion on the town.
Well, we can choose, a couple of things on that, on what Jack said first. So I said the other night that I still had some work and research and thinking to do before I was ready to vote on this. I wasn't really imagining, first of all, that was going to happen 3 days later, and that 3 days later I was going to hear something from John that I have never heard before. And in addition to that, I understand that the school committee is meeting on Monday night and have been told that the Board of Selectmen will take into account their consensus on what they think there for the school. So I think we need to take off the table making this decision today. That's just A. B, relative to the override in general, John,
Please.
whether I agree with you or disagree with you, I believe your opinion. We've known for at least since September that we would probably have an override, and we've known several months that we did not have enough money in our levy limit, even for the town amount.
Correct.
And I think what you're saying, to come now, 4 or 5 days before we have to do a ballot question, and I guess I'd say all of a sudden decide that there should not be an override, I don't think that's actually a feasible option. Because it's too late. I mean, why wouldn't you have expressed this sooner?
Well, first of all, I've been somewhat absent due to health issues. And it took me a couple of weeks to get back up to speed, get a lay of the land, where's everybody's head, what do I really know that's factual, and what don't I know? I've also interviewed no less than 6 people over the last 48 hours, some of which were on the school committee over the years, some of which both have been on the school committee as well, understand business extremely well. And I have been strongly advised that it would be a fool's game to have operational overrides for the precise reason which I was describing and which I came to on my own, but I wanted to have confirmation from other people who look at these things, can look at these things from different perspectives. And that's why I said, running an operation, and I've run a number of operations, one that's almost identical to the town of Wenham's size, both financially and personnel-wise. And I got to tell you, we've had some hard times, and I had to get through them. But what you do is you cut until you get to where you can afford what you have left. And it's not necessarily fun, easy, or painless, but you have to work as a team and figure out how to do that, and then where is the exit strategy to get out of the problem? Because if it's not going to get resolved this year, and it might get resolved next year, that's why I said I might be convinced to do an operational override for 1 year to get us through a tough period of time, as to try to relieve a little bit of the discomfort.
Let me try.
So I didn't mean to hold anything up.
Oh, it's a pretty big deal. So,
Pretty big deal.
first of all, I'm going to go back to your first comment. I'm trying to take these sequentially. I know. I was
So was I.
disappointed that none of the school committee was here the other night when we were talking about this.
That's a good point,
There
too.
wasn't a single person. I understood from emails from Michelle Bailey that, well, they don't have a consensus.
Right.
Well, they don't have a consensus then, they don't have one now. But one or two of the members, particularly the chairman, could have got up and expressed something about, whether it's one override or two overrides, anything else like that. And, other than, I thought Julie did a great job, but she said she can't speak for the
Right.
committee. Back to John's point. I think that, by the way, John, if we choose not to have an override I think we have to have an override for the schools, right? There's no
Yes.
choice. Okay, now we're talking about the town. Okay, so we have a choice, and it goes like this. We can put the override, we can vote tonight, this afternoon, put the override on there, and we can either vote this afternoon or Tuesday to say no. The override's on there, but we don't agree with it, and we recommend to the voters not to vote for it. 2, if we choose not to do that, we have to cut $362,000 between now and Tuesday.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Or identify it at least so that you know.
no, we have to
if
cut,
it
the budget's
fails.
going to have to reflect our
Right.
expenses. Oh, yeah,
Sure.
All right.
Has to be
All
balanced.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
And if-
okay, yeah, that's right.
And so
That's a
lot
daunting
of
task.
a lot of
I
money.
wasn't planning to go to Florida until this meeting, but now I'm planning to go to Florida.
So I think, and I also, I think, so Anthony, not naming people or whatever, my feeling is that if we had to cut 300, my thought is, if we had to cut that much money, we're talking about cutting staff in the town,
Yeah, I
right?
had a meeting this morning with our 3 big departments, DPW, police, and fire departments. And the reason I just picked those is because other departments, like the library, it's a regional. So asking them to make cuts, they need to make 3 times the cuts for us to reflect what we really need them to cut. Same with the recreation. So really the money is being spent out of those 3 departments. And that's where the most of the staff sits, other than the 7 people in this building. So we had a conversation, and $361,000, we just all felt that it's not something we can get through just expenses, that it would probably be looking at some kind of staff reductions. They're going to be thinking about it over the weekend, coming up with the list. We're going to meet again we have a staff meeting on Monday. We're going to work on it Tuesday, hopefully maybe identify some options, just to kind of give you a little bit of heads up what we're thinking. But There's a lot of moving parts to that. And as far as, I just want to go back to John's comment, as far as not being able to identify what the dollar amount for next year's budget is the same reason we couldn't identify this year, because there's costs that we have no idea about, like healthcare. So healthcare, we projected an 8% increase. The quote came in at a 14.9% increase, well above our expectations and what we were told by our consultants. So to ask me what next year is, I have no idea, because I don't know the unknowns, and those are the unknowns. What we do know is our collective bargaining agreements and our staff. That's all we know. We don't know, and the
Fixed
big
figures that
portion.
you do know. And the rest, as Jack mentioned 2 or 3 times earlier in our conversation, you put a wag on it, a
Yeah,
wild ass
yeah.
guess as best you can.
And we tried
Intelligent.
that this year, and we were completely.
And you still may be off.
Yeah, we were completely off
Fully
because of that, so, but just.
I'm not saying this is
No, I
easy
know,
or
No, it's not.
painless.
But just, that's $1.2 million of our $8 million that we spent on the town is employee benefits, health, pension, and insurance.
And I care
That's-
about that a lot.
Yeah, no, it's
A
important.
lot.
Those are important.
I've
So,
been here for 15 years doing this job, and when I did it 10 years ago, and I was chairman of the board, we started months ahead of time, and each department head was asked to cut 3, 5, or 10% and demonstrate how that was going to affect your budget and your operations.
but that wasn't the instructions at the beginning of the budget session that we gave departments. We asked departments to create a level services budget, which they did. But you're right. If the instruction was, in the event, and maybe we should have did that, in the event that you can't get it within under the levy, then come back with something else.
Saw this
We
coming,
missed
even though
that.
I was absent
Yeah.
a bit, I saw this coming because it looked just like '08 and '09, when we had the same, almost identical problem again, earlier, and it was very painful and very
Yeah.
difficult to deal with. And I have great sympathy
Yeah.
for the whole thing, because I know that we're the people that have to execute and deal with it and figure out how to keep both morale
Right.
up and keep personnel in place and still provide services as best we can.
Yep, you're right.
So let me see if I can take this back a little bit. So I think we have like 3 different decisions. Not all of them have to be made tonight. In the first place, in terms of coming up with a cuts of 363, we're going to have to do that anyway.
Yeah.
When we show up at town meeting, if someone says, "Excuse me, Mr. somebody or other, or Miss Trudy Reed," whatever, so what if the override doesn't pass at town meeting? What is the town going to do? We have to have answers for that then.
What's the backup option?
Well, we're going to have them.
Yep.
We can't say,
That's right.
well, we'll have to
That's
think
why I
about it, we'll
asked
get back to
Anthony
you.
we
again
have.
yesterday.
The school's got away
We'll
with that
post it
for a
on the
couple of
website
years,
tomorrow,
but we probably
next
won't.
month. No, we're going to have an answer for that. We're going to have a discussion and multiple discussions, probably. I have some ideas, but I don't think it's premature to vent them. But right now, the first question is, do we have 2 overrides, whether you agree with either one of the overrides?
Jack, I'm a full-time player. You know that.
Yeah.
And I understand what we have to do, and I am always willing to hear more.
Yeah, so let me see if I can, I'm not sure we all agree on this either. So let's vote on the structure of the overrides. Do we have one override that combines the schools in the town, or do we have 2 overrides that separate the town and the schools? That's the first question.
Okay, but Jack, maybe I misunderstood this, but it's my understanding that the school committee has been given, not assurances, has been told that if they get their consensus to us by Tuesday, that the Board of Selectmen will consider their consensus in our decision. So if they were told that and they're operating under that and they were told that by someone or the Board of Selectmen, then it's really unfair for us to vote today, let alone the fact that I'm still reeling from the fact that John, at this point. So I think it's,
Where'd you get that information? I saw the same emails you saw from Michelle Bailey. Michelle Bailey said there's no consensus in the schools.
But you did not get anything from Michelle saying, we're going to meet on Monday night, because they had to have posted that meeting a couple of days
They're going to
ago.
meet Monday night, Tuesday night, or Wednesday night. They haven't decided which of the 3 nights.
It's on the agenda for Monday night.
Oh, then
And
let's decide.
so, and at least a few people on the school committee are under the impression that we are going to, as I was actually without the school committee, just because we get put in another meeting didn't mean that we were voting today. But it's a little disingenuous to tell them, well, yeah, we really want your input. and then say, oh, but by the way, we
I
decided
didn't tell them I
anyway.
wanted their input.
That you'd consider their, if they had a
I'm hearing this for the
consensus.
first time right now. They're meeting Monday night to give us some advice, or they're.
Not yet,
I haven't heard that in any emails, other than you saying it 5 minutes ago. It's the first time I've heard it.
okay. Well, I guess I will tell you that that's my understanding, is that they have on their agenda for Monday night to discuss the override, whatever, structure, I don't know how it's
Have they
worded.
already published their agenda for the
Yeah,
meeting?
yeah,
Okay.
that's where I
All
saw
right,
it.
so question, Catherine, if they're going to discuss it Monday night, that clearly states that they have not decided, they've not decided.
No,
Well,
they
they-
haven't decided, they haven't given, Catherine's saying they want to give us input of the school committee about how we
After
structure,
Monday night's meeting.
Right, just the structure.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right,
Obviously,
the dollar number's not
They
changing.
were going to vote in favor of their own override, that's.
Right, right. And, I think
And they-
apparently they have some thoughts, as Julie did, about the structure that they think would be the right structure moving forward. Now, they, of course, are assuming, and will assume, unless we say something otherwise, that there is a town and a school over the levy limit override.
What was that?
I think the schools in their deliberation, unless they hear otherwise, are going to assume that there's a town and a school override. Because if there's only a school override, they don't have to come up with any consensus.
That's right.
Right? So that's the
Well,
other
we're gonna have an
reason.
override. Options for the town, I mean, John, you can vote against having an override, against the money going the override, but I think structurally, we have to come up with something that permits the town to vote on an override. And that, I hear your strong feelings in that, but
Yeah.
other
Yep.
people might have opposite opinions that, yes,
Yep.
you need 362, why do you need the 362, whatever it is, and that, and some people, that sounds reasonable to me, so, the Board of Selectmen unanimously, or each one of us can individually say, no, we shouldn't have any overrides, and I'm for zero, or if I'm for the whole thing, or from half of it, or anything. But we have to present that option as well.
You're saying, I just want to make sure I understand this, everything is moving. So you're saying that you would be in favor of some override for the town and the schools in whatever format in front of the town meeting?
Yes.
So that they can decide,
Yes,
yes override, no override.
yes.
And the structure of that we have is separate, but,
Well, we're going to hear Monday night what the schools would prefer the structure to be.
right, right,
And if it's, how many, is it 9 members in school?
7.
7. If it's
And
a 4
hopefully
to 3
they
vote,
can-
I'm not going to pay a lot of attention to that.
Well, hopefully they can come to consensus.
3 or 4 or 5 or
I
10.
do not know. I mean, I'm never quite sure if we can come to consensus with 3 of us.
We're going to
And
get there.
We are.
Yes.
We're going to get there, so that.
We should.
So is your preference, we delay the structural discussion and vote until Tuesday night?
Right, although
Is
I
that
would
right?
like to give my, I think, preliminary opinion, which I think is still not, I've done a lot of work on this since Tuesday, knowing that
I
my
have to-
understanding had to, so
I think
I have
all,
a.
for the public's understanding, I think all 3 of us have spent a lot of time on this. I know just since yesterday, I've spent 4 hours talking to numerous people and thinking through the process through and what the effects would be, and are there other questions? I even called Jackie, 7 o'clock this morning, left her a message that I needed some further information, and she got it to me right away.
Was she at her desk?
At 7
No,
o'clock
she
this
wasn't
morning,
there that
probably not.
early.
She was probably- Anyway, so,
So,
yes,
let me
I
finish.
agree. So, yes, go
I
ahead.
I haven't said.
Well, I agree with the fact that we should wait until Tuesday,
Well,
which I
okay,
think
that's
you just
exactly
did
what-
just say.
Well, that was a question, now I'm proposing it. So we wait until Tuesday for the structure. We don't have to vote necessarily Tuesday night on whether any of us agree with either of the 2 overrides. Do we vote on the school override?
You mean whether we would recommend favorable action?
Right, right.
Right. No, I
We can delay that
I
one.
think, yes, I think it might be wise to delay that since there's so many moving parts.
Yeah, we can wait.
But
just,
we need the structure no later than Tuesday night.
That's right.
Okay. Now you want to make some comments on,
Yeah.
you agree with that, John?
Yes,
Good.
yes.
So
So-
we want to talk about the structure.
Yeah,
because you have some-
just to get some, everybody else has had some preliminary thoughts on this, and I guess mine are still moving a little bit, because I can be persuaded. And I am interested to hear what the school committee says. But I'm most interested in which of these formats is likely to result in a successful override for the town of Wenham. I don't want to sound like I don't care about the school override, but that's going to happen one way or another. And as a selectman, I feel like it's my job to say, okay, which one of these structures do I think would make it most likely that the town would win, would be successful, or would get the override approved. Now, you might, to Jack's point, you might say, well, you know, if it's a smaller one and they're separated, people may be more likely to vote for the smaller one, and so that might make it.
I do
But
not know.
after, you know, we've all been to a lot of town meetings, and so far, really, we've mostly seen school overrides.
Yep.
And I've been to the school committee meetings this year and others that have had forums and input, again, from just the people that show up. And I think it's pretty, I think the school budget, the school override, is likely to pass. It's a crystal ball guess. But based on what has passed in the past,
Based on the past, I would agree with you.
and based on the fact that in the last 2 years, there have been, was it a 500 and a 300? That have passed with literally no information. And this year, we have a lot more information from the schools on what folks would be losing if they didn't pass an override. I think the school override is going to pass. Based on that, my feeling is, let's ride the tails of the school. I mean, it seems unfair, but why? So I guess what I'm saying is, I would be in favor of one article. I think it needs to be very clear how much is the town and what those things are, and how much is the school, and I think we need to ask the schools, in either of these cases, this much money. If you don't get the override in any case, what gets lost?
Well, for what it's worth, you do have those figures here,
Yeah.
I assume within,
Yeah, we do have, we certainly have the school figures, because we've just approved that. But I guess,
I'll answer you.
yeah, so,
I agree,
yeah, okay.
but I agree, but I disagree. I agree that it's more likely to pass for the town because we ride the coattails of schools. But it doesn't give the townsfolk a choice. And I think the townspeople should have a choice. Schools, yes or no, town, yes or no, both yes or no. And that, I think it's not fair for the townsfolk to wrap it all in one and simply say, you know, we're hiding behind the school vote, because that'll pass. And I just, that's, you know, I think they deserve to have a choice, my opinion. Anyway,
Well, I guess, to that point, ultimately, they do have a choice, even if they're together.
no, but the choice is horrific for us, because if they turn it down, we're done.
Well, that's also
why
true if they turn it down.
Not for the schools, it's not.
No, but either of those options, if we separate them, and they say, $300,000 the towns can manage, and they turn it down,
Yeah.
we're done.
That's
In the
right.
second case, 300 out of $1 million, well, I would have done it just for, you know, I don't like that 300,000, but I'm really a school person, we're done.
Yeah.
Right?
There's going to be a lot of people that
Right.
say yes to that, I get it.
And
But that's not the choice I'd like to offer.
I feel like,
Just told you a minute ago, I agree with you. It's more likely to pass, but that's not my criteria. My criteria is to making sure the townsfolk have the option to say, yep, the town has made a defensible argument, here's what they're gonna have to cut, without scaring people, you know, okay, the police people aren't gonna be there Mondays. And the fire people aren't gonna be there Tuesdays, you know.
Oh, they're gonna
The town administrator's only gonna be there one day a week.
well, it's, no, it does have to be realistic, and that's a lesson I learned on the school committee, that if you're gonna put together what you're gonna cut,
come
it's
on,
gotta be, you know,
Being hyperbole.
realistic.
Yeah.
But there's, yeah, okay, so I think that.
We'll wait to hear.
We'll wait to hear.
Monday night.
and that'll also give us time, give Anthony time to get a figure for us as to what that 361 would represent in personnel or equipment. or
Honestly,
You can't do
I
that
don't
between now
thank
and
you.
Monday. This is gonna
I agree
be,
with Jack, that's an unfair
Huh?
question. I agree with you completely, I think you're going to say. The fact, I can't do this by Monday, I agree
We
with that
might not
part.
be able to do it by the following Monday, never mind that, but we have to have it done a week to 10 days in advance.
At least.
And by the way, for the warrant hearing, which is the Monday before,
The 30th?
Yeah, March
we
30th.
have to have our answers then, because I would expect people who come to that are usually a little more sophisticated than people who just show up to town meeting, not to be. But they're going to ask, and particularly if they listen to this conversation we're having this afternoon, they're going to ask, okay, 361, if it doesn't pass, what are you going to do? We
Well,
have to have we have to have answers to that.
Jack, that's my point, is we need to have that as soon as, quickly as possible, because that question could be asked on the floor, and what do
We're gonna
we
have to
do,
have a
stand
week
there
of
with our hands?
We're going to have that answer roughly 10 days to 2 weeks in advance of the, at least a week in advance of the warrant, because we have to meet here
Yeah.
Right.
and discuss it.
Yeah.
So,
Even earlier, if we.
well,
could
I'm
possibly,
taking the
yeah.
pressure off of you.
No, I
It's
know, I
just
It's not
appreciate it.
probably likely by
Thank you,
Tuesday.
Jack. You know,
But by Tuesday,
no,
today's Friday.
Tuesday would be
By
tough, but we
Tuesday
do want to
would
get
be-
that message out to the citizens on
Yeah.
what the cut would be
So-
as soon as possible. So I know your sense of
You
urgency.
understand what I'm
Yeah,
talking
absolutely.
about? I'm not trying to be a problem.
No, no.
I'm trying to avoid a problem.
Personally, I'd like to do it by the 17th at the next selectmen's
The
meeting.
earlier
but-
the better, I'm just,
but I appreciate what Jack's doing, too.
We're going to have options too. It just can't be, okay, here's 5, as I said, the fire department doesn't meet Tuesday. We're going to have options. We just can't have, oh, it adds up to 362, that's good. Some of these are going to be easier. They're all going to be difficult options, but at least we need options.
Like a menu
We
type.
can't,
And to your
Yes.
point,
Yeah.
we don't want to release this information before everybody's really comfortable. I mean, there'll be deliberation, but to finalize it before everyone's really comfortable, because in Tuesday, or we don't want to be saying, oh, and by the way, we would be cutting X people,
Yeah.
and not really have those people.
Right.
So it might take a few weeks, but to Jack's point, it's got to be, I agree, I agree with all of that. So,
by the way, we probably can't have that in executive session. It doesn't qualify, right?
No.
No, I don't think we need to. We need to create a relationship of teamwork. This is going to be a team effect in ways that we've probably never experienced before.
Yeah,
There has to
okay.
be, there has to be a full team effect, meaning not just the personnel, but the town folks as well. They need to understand this is how we got here, and now that we're here, we need to come up with creative ways of reducing the pain, but we're going to have a very difficult budget
It's going to
year.
affect people in town, and it's hard to speculate in an open session. Something, let's talk about the fire, let's talk about the police, let's talk about the highway, we're going to engender anger and
Yeah, and just look at the school override all by itself. Even if we don't have an override for the town, the school one all by itself, that's serious money.
yeah,
Very
but that
serious
feels,
money.
again, to the point of not having an override for the town, that feels unfair.
Correct.
Because we have to, if we.
We have to
if
pay
we-
our people and
Right,
do our services.
right. So if they're going to,
Yeah.
if there's an override for the schools to, at this point, say we're not going to have an override for the towns, doesn't feel fair to our staff or
That's right.
anybody. So I
Very,
think,
very wrong.
again, I want to give the
Yeah.
townsfolk a choice. A choice is we
Yeah,
offer
yeah.
an override, and they can
Yes.
turn it down or not. The selectmen can vote 2-1, 1-2, 3-0, whatever, 0-3, whatever. But giving them a choice, I think, is very important.
I would agree with that, Jack. very
I
much.
think the last thing about the structure that I would say is that when you go, when you're trying to decide, when you're in, when you're sitting in the ballot box, especially if you haven't, standing in the ballot box, especially if you haven't been to town meeting, you don't really understand, actually, in any of it. You just have a number. And so I think it makes it easier for people to either pick the lower number or the higher number, or the schools or the not schools, based on sort of not
Emotion?
that much information. Not as much information as we might like them
that's
to
true,
have.
right.
And, if you combine them, there will be parents that will go in there and say, yeah, there's stuff that's on the school and town that I think is useful, but might not decide to do that separately. I think it's a little divisive. I guess that is what it comes really down to for me. I feel like we're making some inroads into bringing the towns and the schools back together. We've had kind of a gap. And it could be school committee.
That's what the doctor was trying to indicate the other night when she did her presentation.
Well, and I guess I
fully
agree
agreed
with
that
her
she
on
was
that.
She was very concise and very articulate as to her description, and was trying to say, yeah, we're in this boat together, so we
Right.
need to figure out how to row together.
She did an excellent job.
So I
excellent
think,
job.
having sat on both sides of the table, I feel like in the past, when I was on the school committee, I wished, if there was never a town override, but I wished for us to be as, together as possible, and I would wish the same thing in this case. I just don't think we've got so much at stake. I don't think it's in anyone's best interest to make people, literally, make people choose.
There's one more
But-
downside to combining, which I didn't articulate, but I will now. That once we do this, we can't go back.
What do you mean?
If the town and the schools both need an override,
Mm-hmm.
and we establish a new precedent to combine them, we're not going back to separating them. Because then we'll have to explain in the future, well, why are we separating them? And what's the answer to that? Once you combine them and say it's a good to do, you're going to have to explain to people why it's no longer good to do, and why you want separate ones. And so be careful.
Well, I think, if you have three different people voting, then you might get a different result, and that's
It's going to be a tough explanation as to, that's my opinion.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, it's,
Yeah,
we're an hour past our time.
Yeah,
All right, so we're going to,
Do nothing more tonight, John.
okay, fine with
this
me.
afternoon. It's not night, please don't
Thank
make
you
it
for-
be night
Catherine,
yet.
thank you for hearing me
It could be
out.
tonight if we
Jack,
keep this up.
Same.
Happy to hear it, just kind of
I move that we adjourn.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.